Cool. Well, let's get started. I wanted to welcome you all to Guru's Remote-a-thon series. Since we're not able to be together, unfortunately, at Empower this year, we've put together this virtual session so that we can share all the amazing stories and insights from our incredible speakers and Guru community. So today, we're thrilled to welcome Justin Hill and Sara Davatelis from Sailpoint, which is the leader in identity management. And Sailpoint delivers an innovative approach to securing access across the entire enterprise with the Sailpoint Predictive Identity Platform. Today we're going to go through how Sailpoint built knowledge management into their modern tech stack. In 2019 and this year as well, I've had the pleasure of working with the Sailpoint team to help modernize their collaboration tools. And they implemented Slack, Zoom, and Guru as the final puzzle piece. And so we're going to be going through this session in an actionable and interactive way. And we're going to walk through the lessons that they learned taking on this project, all the way through to the current state, which is 94% org-wide adoption, which is awesome. So I'm Meg McGrath. I'm a senior customer success manager at Guru, and I will let our awesome guests introduce themselves.
Hi, Justin Hill, IT project manager at Sailpoint, and I led the evaluation implementation of Guru.
Hi, I'm Sara Davatelis, and I was formerly an application administrator here at Sailpoint, and I manage and administered Guru, Slack, and Jira for our whole company.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much for joining us. I'm excited for this. So we're going to first dive in to just talk about like this origin of this massive project that you guys had taken on at Sailpoint last year. So you guys kicked off the project in early 2019. Justin, can you tell us a little bit about what led you guys to take a look at your tech stack at that time?
Yeah, well, at first, our foundation at Sailpoint is a SaaS first shop. So we see a lot of value in leveraging the power of SaaS and working through IT. And what our team does is we evaluate all the internal business problems and see if we can solve them with what SaaS tools we have, or if we need to go out to market and evaluate new solutions. So with the incredible growth of Sailpoint, we've been lucky to expand at 30% year after year for about 5 years, which is just crazy amount of growth. But it's created some IT challenges. To mitigate some of those problems, IT has historically kind of backed out and allowed the business units to evaluate solutions by themselves and implement with IT kind of facilitating the onboarding process. We think that was great at a certain time and a certain size because it did provide a lot of value of letting the business units be agile, but we did start seeing some problems. We started seeing a lot of shadow IT. Our app stack grew to well over 200 apps, and we were having a lot of tools kind of do the same thing between business units. So we wanted to make sure that we could wrangle that problem in. And so for the last couple of years, we've been focusing heavily on centralizing IT and defining new ways of problem solving without getting in the way of the business.
Makes sense. That's a lot of apps to manage. So you have told me that you guys sort of honed in on these 3 pillars. That would be the foundation of your new tech stack. Could you tell us like how you determined that these would be sort of the 3 buckets that you were focusing on?
Yeah, so one of the big things there that we did to start this new philosophy of centralizing IT is we had a huge survey go out to all of Sailpoint. We wanted to get everybody's input on what their pain points were and working at Sailpoint and finding those SaaS tools to solve those problems. And one of the things that was really glaring to us was our collaboration stack. We saw that business units were collaborating really well in a silo. So our marketing team was working really well with themselves, but if they were using HipChat and trying to chat with engineering who was using MS Teams or wanting Slack, things just weren't working the way they should. And that happened across the board when it came to video conferencing. Some were using Skype, some were using WebEx, some Zoom, chat, like I just stated, and then knowledge management. We had our central platform called that's based off Jive, but some units were also using SharePoint and Box. And so we didn't have single solutions to solve those problems. And that's something that we really wanted to focus on so that we could really propel the business forward in the collaboration sphere.
Makes sense. Yeah, these 3 are pretty crucial to getting everyone on the same page. So that's great. Cool. So now that you guys have sort of like honed in on those three buckets, we'd love to hear more about like your process around how you, were seeking out and evaluating vendors during that time.
Yeah, so with the new philosophy, we have to find new ways of solving these problems in a way that the business unit will see the value. We are changing how things get done, and change is hard. So we wanted to make it in a way that people could rely on us and to get this done. So what we decided to do was, with any company-wide solution, we needed to look at the top 5 vendors in that industry. We're always striving to go for the best-in-class solutions. We also wanted to make sure that we partnered with vendors that shared our core values. Sailpoint's core values is what we call the 4 I's, which is innovation, integrity, impact, and individuals. And so finding those vendors that matched us, we felt like we could always have a long-term strategy with vendors that met our core values. And then we also, the main thing was wanting to have a data-driven approach. What we found with these business units going out and evaluating by themselves was they were making a lot of emotional decisions. They'd be making decisions based on who they knew and within their network and who could promise the right thing, but they weren't really making decisions based on data, based on strong requirements and seeing how those apps lined with their requirements. So we wanted to remove that problem from the equation and start being sort of a third party in this process to make sure that the businesses was getting the right things that they needed. And so this new approach really kind of showed some value to the organization, and we're still tweaking as we grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that it seems like if you're buying a tool for, lots of different business units, there could be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So do you feel like this data-driven approach kind of helped mitigate any like pushback that you might have?
Yeah, I think there was certainly some pushback at the beginning. Like I said, change is hard. People don't want to let go of some of the freedom they had. But I think quickly, even within a year, we started seeing a lot of business units start relying on us now and wanting to include us in because they understand our approach is one that is going to limit some of the, what I call whiplash for the users, where they may be cycling through 3 or 4 different apps in a year to solve their business problems. Well, their users don't want to have to learn 3 or 4 different systems. They want to rely on learning one system, learning it well, incorporating it into their workflow, and depending on that in the next few years. And that's really what we want to achieve. So we've had to implement sort of the 80-20 rule when doing these evaluations. And I think we've seen a lot of positive feedback from the business units on that.
That's great. Awesome. Well, now we're going to turn it into a question for the audience. So if you're watching right now, the Sailpoint team has just shared that, they're a full SaaS shop and they make sure that they're using best-in-class tools. We'd love to hear what your team's tech stack looks like. Do you have all SaaS as well? A hybrid model with some SaaS and some on-prem, or all on-prem? So I'm going to launch that poll and we'll give it a few seconds or minutes here. Cool. So far, it looks like we are seeing mostly all SaaS. So looks like everyone's coming into the future here. You guys working in IT, is that something like typical, especially like in sort of our space as tech companies, that you would see?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think SaaS ops is a new way of handling IT, and it's certainly interesting to solve the problems that don't really have a playbook anymore, and we're certainly going through that right now. I think that is certainly the future of all IT operations, is going the SaaS model. It provides a lot of value there where you can rely on costs. You don't have to worry about troubleshooting as much, so it does provide a lot of benefits.
Cool. Well, it looks like everyone's pretty much in the same boat here, so that's cool to hear. We can move on to our next question here. Great. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the evaluation process, specifically in Guru's with Guru. So we'll kind of jump into that. And so here we have sort of a very generic knowledge management definition, which is knowledge management is the process of creating, sharing, using, and managing knowledge and information of an organization. So very sort of baseline definition here, but we're going to kind of move into Sailpoint's requirements and how they were really thinking about knowledge management. So good to sort of have this as a baseline here. Awesome. So we'd love to hear about what, challenges you guys were faced with your previous solution and how that sort of fed into the requirements that you had when evaluating knowledge management vendors.
Yeah, the main one, and it's highlighted in this slide here, is finding a search that works. Our previous platform just did not serve up the articles of content that we were looking for at any given time. We would find that often whenever you would search for something, it may have been something 5 years ago that's never been looked at or hasn't been updated in a long time. So we found that it just became a dumping ground where no one looked at. So we needed something that actually served up the information you needed and was relevant. Another thing was a single source of truth. With having several different systems, historically at Sailpoint, we wanted to make sure that we provided one solution that met everybody's needs and that was easy to understand and build content in so that people could want to trust it and it'd be the single source of truth. And then lastly, we wanted to make sure that it integrated and played well with our other apps. With having so many apps, we wanted to streamline the user experience where they are finding their knowledge where they're at. I don't want them to context switch between Slack to an email to a browser, all to find their knowledge. It should be where they are at. And that was really a big win for us to find an app that allowed that.
Great. Yeah, I think it's a good thing you guys found Guru because these are definitely things that we strive to provide for our customer base. So that's pretty cool. Kind of honing in on that integration with other tools part, Sarah, I know that a lot of your role or your new role as well now is sort of on, putting together the different puzzle pieces between the tech stack. So we'd love to think about how you think about Guru fitting into that.
Yeah, and interactivity of our tech stack is such a major priority for us. As we said, we're a full SaaS shop, so when we select new tools, but one of the main things we look for is, how this tool is going to interact with the applications that we already have. And so we want to have a seamless transition between every single app that everyone uses on a daily basis. So the Guru Slack app and the Guru web extension were major selling points to us because of that. I mean, the Guru extension overlays over a lot of the main apps that we have in our tech stack, like Jira and Salesforce and Zendesk, which allows our users to pull up like their knowledge articles and their how-to guides without even leaving where they're working. So I think it's really valuable for us.
Awesome. Yeah, I included this graphic because way back when in January, I went on site to help train the Sailpoint employees on Guru, and they had this awesome graphic in our training deck to sort of show that Guru is the final piece in their new modern stack. So thought it would be fun to include here. Cool. Well, now we're going to talk a little bit about the teams that were involved in your evaluation. So this is another screenshot from a spreadsheet that Justin and Sarah had sent me early on with all the different departments that were involved in this process. So just wanted to highlight how large that is, and it must have been a challenge for you guys, but would love to hear what teams were most involved and if any were, prioritized in this project.
Yeah, sure. As you can see, we had a large stakeholder group. We knew this was going to be a large effort for Sailpoint. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was well represented, regardless if they had traditionally used our intranet or not. We wanted it to be kind of a fresh slate for everybody. And so we went out to our tech council and did a call to stakeholders and really wanted to focus and get at least one or two individuals from every business unit represented. We started at, it looks like 33 their stakeholders. By the end, we had probably over 65 or so stakeholders. So it was large. It was a very large undertaking. Also to support this, we pulled some reports from our Jive platform, which was our intranet at the time, to see who the heavy content creators were. It was outlined that basically our engineering department and our sales enablement department were our big ones. I like having engineering in the fold with bringing on new tools. They're very technical. They like to stress test systems. So it was great to get them involved and them having a loud voice in the evaluation and the implementation. Because we know that if we can satisfy their use cases, we can pretty much satisfy anybody's use cases. Sales enablement was another good business unit to work with because they are heavy content creators. They support the sales team. It's important to get the sales team the information they need when they need it. And so we wanted to work closely with them to make sure that they felt great about the future solution and then the solution we built out. But working with all these teams, we did quickly see that we were going to have some major challenges in this project, going from Jive to Guru. So yes, it was a fairly large undertaking.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's been awesome, like just to see sort of some of the feedback that I've received, like through our channels from your end users, the different pieces of feedback that we've gotten depending on the day-to-day use case. That's super valuable for us and interesting to see. So moving into another question. Justin and Sarah have mentioned that, they were trying to consolidate tools across all those different business units who are using disparate tools. So wondering if tool consolidation is a priority for your team this year. So again, I will launch the poll. And we'll give it a few minutes here. Great, well, we can share those results. It looks like the majority is saying that, yes, this is a priority this year. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are also probably trying to cut costs a little bit. So we have a couple of yeses and a maybe, so TBD. Thanks for sharing, guys. We'll move on to the fun part, which is the story of our actual Guru implementation and rollout. So first, we're going to kind of show this really awesome material. Well, we're going to show several really awesome materials that the Sailpoint team put together to sort of prep their colleagues on the introduction of Guru and build some excitement. I love how you guys not only introduced like what the product is, but also kind of were whipping them into shape for what they needed to do to get started. So yeah, would love to hear kind of like an overview on how you prepared people to migrate knowledge into Guru. And basically, if you were looking back, if you were to do anything differently there.
Yeah, sure. I think we identified pretty early, and also talking with the business units, that we had a few big pain points we needed to get over or mitigate during this rollout. So one was the internet burnout. So Harbor is our tagline for our intranet based off the Jive platform at the time. And we had a stigma at Sailpoint that it just didn't work, and people did not rely on it. And there's just this funny story of, if you're new to Sailpoint and if you ask somebody where to find some information, they tell you to go to Harbor, they're basically telling you to go screw yourself. So it was that bad of a solution that we needed to show people the value of the new solution, have them buy in, because one of the other major risks of the project was a timeline. Our timeline was super short for this rollout. Initially, we were looking at a timeline of about 2 months from purchase to go live, due to the fact that we were having a contract with our previous platform, and we didn't want to re-up for another year. And it didn't look like we weren't going to be able to go month by month to give us some time. So we had a hard deadline that was just way too short. So I need to make sure that we were all moving in the same direction quickly. And so I thought these marketing videos might be a good thing. Excuse me. And then also I think Guru just fundamentally doesn't work as a normal intranet. And so I needed to make sure that people understood that going from apples to oranges, that the internet, the typical internet is go to the file system and try to find the information. Well, Guru comes to you. So I needed to make sure that people were trained pretty quickly, could understand the value, could understand how this thing works, so that with our tight timeline, we could turn this up quickly and not feel like we lost something in the wash. So I thought with our culture at Sailpoint, the values of being an individual, the culture of Guru, it kind of lended itself to having some fun with it, poking fun at training videos, poking fun at the whole thing, entertaining people, and just kind of doing some guerrilla marketing where people are talking about the videos, but really they're learning something at the same time.
Yeah, totally. And we'll show a little bit how you guys kind of weave the product into it in the next video, but Sarah would also love to hear a little bit more about like the sandbox and sort of what you guys did to prepare on the more technical side.
So we came into this process with a monstrous amount of content. I mean, we had over 30,000 documents across all of Harbor, and we'd had Harbor since 2012, 2013. So that's, 7-8 years worth of company-wide documentation sitting on this platform. So once we knew that we were going to be moving into Guru from Harbor, we started this campaign within the company to encourage everyone to go in and clean up their junk, essentially. And that was referenced in the video. It's make sure you clean it up so we can get our deposit back. It was a mess. And we did a report early on too, where we found that approximately like 20,000 of those 30,000 documents hadn't even been looked at since January 1st, 2018. So that's 2/3 of the existing documentation in Harbor was just sort of sitting there, taking up space, muddying searches when people would look for certain documents, try to find things that they actually needed to reference. They would get all these really irrelevant old documents that they didn't even want to see. So it was just such a pain to actually find a piece of documentation you wanted. You didn't rely on the search. If you didn't know where it physically was within, the structure of Harbor, you would either go without the information or hope that someone on your team had a bookmarked the link already that they could send you so you could actually read the documentation. So it just wasn't good at all. And so a major part of the preparation movement was our cleanup campaign. We posted weekly messages on Slack. We created those hype videos to get our users really excited and encouraged to go in and clean up Harbor. And overall, I would say it was a marginally successful campaign. We probably managed to get rid of about 6,000 to 7,000 documents out of those 30,000. I would have liked to see 10,000 more removed. But the reality is that change is hard. It's just not as easy as blindly going in and mass deleting documents. People actually have to dedicate time to go in, look at every single document individually and, decide with their team whether it's still relevant or not, because there's just stuff there that they didn't even know existed at a certain point. It was just kind of there. So making sure that people had the bandwidth to go in on our short timeline was difficult. So there was only so much that we could have feasibly expected before the migration. So we just had to kind of accept that there was going to be cleanup after the fact.
Totally. You guys were like part-time Marie Kondo experts for a while there.
Yeah, perfect time for that, yeah.
Yeah, on the Guru side, this was by far like the biggest migration that we've ever supported. So it was absolutely an invaluable learning experience for us. And our engineering team had learned a lot about, bringing things from Jive into Guru. And I know Justin earlier sort of mentioned how values are really important when you guys are working with vendors. And one of our values is learn and grow. And we definitely did a lot of learning and growing with this project with you guys. So thanks for your patience and being along for the ride. Cool, we'll watch another fun little video here. And this kind of shows how they are introducing sort of the difference between Guru to sort of prep for, the massive change that is sort of an older intranet to what Guru is. subtle jab there. But that was great. Cool. So, now we're seeing, a few months out, 94% adoption org-wide, which is amazing, and something you guys should be patting yourselves on the back about. Would love to hear, what you attribute this to aside from the hype videos and everything else.
Yeah, so I would attribute the high adoption to a couple things, including the hype videos, and the other prep we did, like having a sandbox, a Guru sandbox created right before, a couple weeks before we launched, just to allow a lot of our users to go in, get used to the UI of Guru, how different it was compared to Harbor, since we could have them both side by side for that time. And people could go in and sort of almost like pre-build out what they wanted their collections to look like and how they wanted to structure their content in the new, knowledge base of Guru, because it was going to be completely different. It wasn't going to look at all like Harbor. So we wanted to make sure that they could just, on launch day, go into Guru and use it without having to really come to us and say, hey, where is this? How do I find this? How do I search? That sort of thing. So it really helped make it sort of a normal part of their lives before we had even launched, so that the transition was seamless when we actually did launch. And another thing that we did that I think was really important was we did a handful of live trainings with the Guru team led by Meg, both on site here in Austin and online for our global employees. And we had really good attendance for those. We probably saw about half the company overall either attend the live trainings or watch recording of those trainings. So everyone, I think, was really comfortable with Guru by the time we officially launched it.
Yeah, that was super fun. It was great to see the great engagement that we got. Well, awesome. So to wrap it up, we're kind of going to bring this into the present day. So, I think you guys must be super excited that you got this modern tech stack spun up before the new work from home normal. But would love to see, how that has impacted your ability to work from home and sort of the experience for your end users within the company.
Yeah, it's funny. We kind of got all of our pieces to our tech stack fall into place just in time for this to happen. We had launched Slack in February of 2019, Zoom in July of 2019, and Guru by January 2020. So by the time we were all forced to work from home, everyone was kind of comfortable with the existing stack that we had, totally by accident, but it really worked out for us because, the majority of our company is pretty office-based. We have some employees that are fully remote before this happened, but the majority of people sort of revolve around physical office locations. We have almost 600 people in the Austin office alone and a couple other 100 around the globe in offices there. So by the time the stay-at-home order was announced, we had a lot of people suddenly start to work from home that were never doing it regularly before. But it was kind of a seamless transition. Like the only thing that really changed for the way that people worked was where they were physically sitting. They just weren't in their cube anymore. They were at their house. So a statistic that I think is pretty telling here is that before mid-March, we had about 35,000 Slack messages a day. And that's across, the 1,000+ employees that we have in Slack. The day that the stay-at-home order went into effect here in Austin in mid-March, we saw an immediate jump to like 60,000+ messages a day. So I like to say that's like 25,000 conversations, shoulder taps, chit chats that were going on physically in the office that overnight went to Slack, went to an application that people were used to, and we saw a similar jump in Zoom calls. People have been referencing Guru cards way more regularly because they can't even shoulder tap people if they wanted to. They have to rely on these Guru cards. They don't want to repeat themselves in Slack, so they make cards for all this information. I mean, HR has a whole board in Guru dedicated to COVID-19, the response, how to cope with working from home if you're not used to it. So as an admin, it was really nice to see just how easy it was for everyone to transition into this new way of living.
That's awesome. Seems like it was fairly seamless and you guys are getting your money's worth. So that's good. Cool. Well, we're going to jump into some Q&A. So if you are in the audience and you have any questions, you can type in on the Q&A feature in Zoom. So we'll just give that a few seconds and we can start answering. Cool. So we had one that just came in, and it's, how do you guys encourage teams like engineering to contribute to Guru?
Well, mainly it was showing the value of it. They had stress test our Jive platform pretty heavily and used it in ways that we just didn't even fathom. So it took a little bit of work to show them how Guru would take over their use case. And once we showed that and showed the flexibility that Guru allowed, especially being integrated in Slack, because engineering was heavily involved in wanting to get Slack brought into Sailpoint. They were the loudest voices of trying to get that done. But showing now that, hey, you got this tool that you wanted, it helps ease collaboration. But on top of that, now you don't even have to leave it to get the knowledge you need. I think that showed a lot of value there, and quickly bought into it, and we're really excited about the solution. So really just showing and demoing it out provided a lot of that heavy lifting for us.
Cool. Okay, we have another one that is, how are you evaluating the success of the new tools that you have added to your stack?
Is that a me question?
That's a huge question.
Just overall adoption, I think, would be one of the highest metrics that we look at. Slack, we have a really high adoption rate. We don't really see too many people trying to, go to Teams or try to go to Slack for business anymore. Everyone wants to use Slack because it's easy to use. Just sort of general usage, seeing channels created. In Guru, it's seeing boards and cards created and people interacting, people requesting to have, collections created so that they can interact easier with their teammates, and just overall wanting to be in the applications, I would say.
Like general sentiment and adoption.
Yeah, generally a positive sentiment. If people aren't, cursing the name of the application every day like they were with Harbor, I consider that to be success.
That makes sense.
But to piggyback off that a bit, that is one of the maturation steps we need to do as an organization, and something we're really focusing on as we shifted philosophies from allowing the business units to do a lot of their own thing. We're starting to centralize more and understand what is a healthy application, what is being utilized, and building up those metrics and KPIs to understand that better.
Cool. And will you sort of have those be a baseline across all the different types of apps that you use, regardless of use case or department?
I think we're too young to understand if we can create one system to achieve that. I think it's really going to be predicated on how apps are scoped and the business units that they're using and how they're using it. So yeah, it's almost a to be determined, just because we're so young and trying to understand it.
Cool. Well, seems like a good experiment. Cool. So we have one, with Guru being a new resource, do you track content that people are trying to find but might not yet be in Guru? So I guess that would be sort of like the searches producing no results, or?
For the most part, anything that existed in Harbor that was not removed during the cleanup phase was moved into Guru. So technically everything is in there. It might just be harder for people to find. And a lot of the times people will tell us when they have trouble finding things. So as an administrator, my job a lot of the time during our transition period in January and February was, if someone couldn't find something, try to figure out where it existed. A lot of people were also sort of stuck in the way of physically going to find items and going through, the actual structure of everything, and the structure didn't line up with how Harbor was. So they weren't utilizing search because they didn't think it would work, because they were so trained by how Harbor was working. So sort of transitioning them into being like, okay, use keywords, use the tags that might be on those cards already, and helping them to do that. They were able to find their documents a lot easier. And so I don't think it was ever really a point of, hey, this isn't in Guru, where is it? It's just, where is this possibly, and how do I find it better?
And also on that, we're still sort of young into the tool. We didn't have time to really build a strategy on how to implement this and have a long tail of maintenance on this. And so we're still kind of in the mode of making sure structure is great and people know how to use it, but long-term, using the analytics that Guru has inside allows us to see those type of things. And so when we have space owners wondering, what is a heavily searched term, we can find that pretty easily and start looking at those search terms and creating content around that, or at least starting to have conversations of why is this a problem that we're seeing over and over again. So yeah, mechanisms are there. I just don't think we've matured to that point yet.
And a lot of it is stuff that they can do themselves. Everyone who has an author access to a collection has the ability to access that content as far as the analytics are concerned. So if they wanted to see, hey, what search terms weren't returning results for, my collections, oh, okay, I know what search terms they are. They don't even need to come to me as the admin to find that information. So it could just be bypassing me totally.
Yeah, it's good that the sort of, we call it like the knowledge council. So when like each department sort of has their own autonomy and able to like govern their own sort of content, because as IT experts, you might not know, what content should be in the marketing collection, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings us to one more question, which I think is something Sarah and I, we have been talking about a bit recently, is like, in terms of ongoing maintenance, do you have any rules to govern what unused knowledge should be archived?
So recently, it's been about 3 to 4 months since we moved everything. We did a really big mass migration from Harbor into Guru. So those 20,000 plus documents were moved pretty much on a single day. And so a lot of the cards had a default date of verification set for about 3 months. And about 2 weeks ago, all of the cards that hadn't been changed to a certain verifier on the team, on the Sailpoint team, or hadn't had their verification date changed, went unverified. So at the moment, we have about 16,000 unverified cards out of the 24,000 we have in Guru total. So there's a lot of these cards that are now just going to be in Guru and they're going to be untrusted. And so when people go to look at this documentation or these cards, they're going to say, hey, this is untrusted. Who's supposed to own this? And hopefully that'll encourage them to go in and sort of subconsciously clean things up and say, oh, we don't need this. It's old anyway. Let's just archive it and get rid of it. And as that process goes on, the things that sit there unverified and just sort of staying in the red for the next couple weeks, the next month or so, those are the ones that we know no one really needs. So we can start going to the business and saying, hey, why don't we just get rid of these cards? We can archive them. We can always bring them back if we want to, but let's just hide them from the search, hide them from your boards so that it's easier for you guys to use it. So that
we knew that day was coming, and we kind of proactively decided that it was better to just let them go unverified as sort of a signal to get back to work.
Like, hey, cleanup isn't done yet. We still have a lot of work to do. So it's going to be ongoing for a while, but I think just the fact that they're just sitting there as unverified and you can see that they're unverified, I think is a really good signal, which Harbor was missing for sure. You would never be able to tell if something was unverified or untrusted in Harbor. So at least this is a step in the right direction.
And again, like I said, good learnings for us. The teams were bringing over a ton of content. So we're figuring out new ways to improve. Well, awesome. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. This was fun and definitely a massive undertaking for you both, not just with the Guru rollout, but I'm sure with the other tools you implemented. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And for those of you watching, here are some other ways that you can sort of get involved. You can join the Guru community on Slack and also check out the other sessions that we're posting and other events that are happening. So feel free to check that out. And that's a wrap. Thank you guys for joining.